This is Sheila from Sheila's Ear. Let me tell you what I've heard. I have been listening to the Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea podcast. And I can tell you for certain these two guys are hoopy Froods, if you are familiar with the book content. I wasn't, but now I know hoopy Froods are cool guys. I also know a bunch of other trivial bits of information that I don't really need to know. But anywho.
Hi there, and welcome to Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea. This is Brian, and I'm with my friend Jeff, and we'll be talking about Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy in all its forms. But before we do that, let's listen to a message from one of our proud sponsors.
This episode of Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea is brought to you by LtUaE, the restaurant at the end of the universe. If you've done 6 impossible things this morning, why not round it off with breakfast at LtUaE, the restaurant at the end of the universe? Deposit a penny today.
Hey Brian, how you doing today?
Hey Jeff, I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing good, but I feel like I need to make a speech again that I forgot to make last episode.
Oh my goodness. Do you remember last episode?
Yes. How could you forget our 43rd episode where we talked about 42?
That's right. I'll never forget 43. I mean 42.
And the speech I'm referring to is the best man speech that I gave at your wedding, where I put in my own theory of what the question was.
Right.
Do you remember?
I was just celebrating my 15th year of marriage to my lovely wife.
Yes.
And I don't think my memory is nearly as good as you think it might be. I was lucky to remember the date.
Yes. So anyway, I theorized that the possible question to which the answer is 42 is, at what temperature in degrees Fahrenheit does Brian like to keep his house?
That's right. Now I remember. Ah, yes, that is true. I remember that. I do remember.
Because, boy, you love your air conditioning.
Oh, I do. And we've talked about this before. During this podcast, I'm sitting here in my office space.
Yes.
And I have to turn the fan off. And this air just doesn't circulate here, so I get hotter and hotter as the night goes on.
So you're kind of glowing.
Thanks. I just got out of the pool.
Oh, that's good. This is the weather for pool, that is for sure.
Oh my goodness. So much has happened since the last time we recorded. It's just crazy.
Absolutely. And it wasn't really that long ago.
No, it wasn't, but it feels like it. I mean, I know it's been close to 5 weeks, I think, since the last time we recorded.
Yes, I think it is.
Time flies so fast, doesn't it?
Yes. It's been so long that you're ready for another vacation.
Well, yes, and through all fairness, my wife is, in education, and she's an administrator, so the summers are the time that we do go on vacation, and we do tend to pound down the vacations one right after another.
Yeah, right. You need a vacation from your vacation.
That's right. So we get back from Alaska a couple weeks ago, and now we're going down to Cozumel in another week. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Yes, opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yep, absolutely.
But between those two, we're going to talk about the first issue of the comic book of Life, the Universe, and Everything.
Wow. There's quite a bit of a difference on the cover, just to start off with, compared to the previous books in this series of comic books.
Yes, definitely.
With Ford and Arthur in their tattered clothes, escaping an explosion on a cricket grounds. First glance, I kind of looked at Arthur, and he sort of looks like a young Rob Reiner.
Yes, he does.
And then all the cricket robots flying off in every direction.
Right. I find it interesting that all the different robots have a different configuration of the red ball pattern on their chest.
Yeah, they're obviously the bombs that are attached to them, like a utility belt or something,
right.
But they do seem to be placed differently on each of the creatures, or robots as we know as them.
Yes. And Ford still has his magnificent red beard.
Mm-hmm.
And Arthur has a cricket ball in his hand as he's running.
And a little bag and a tattered dressing gown.
Yes. So we'll get through the first couple of pages real quickly. It's just talking about who the producers and the editors, and then some of the creators, and a couple of new names in this one.
Yeah, looks like it.
So adapted by John Carnell, breakdowns by Paris Cullens, pencils by Neil Vokes, inks by John Nyberg, colored by Digital Chameleon, and lettered by John Workman.
Digital Chameleon, is that some kind of a software program?
I do not know, but it does sound like one, but I have a feeling that's just his moniker.
There you go.
So I like this, that it says, for those with short memories.
Oh my goodness.
Our story so far is thus. Or our story thus far.
Mm-hmm. Do you recognize this character? I don't really know what this character represents.
I do not know who this would be.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like a regal royal get-up with all these robes.
Mm-hmm.
Very official with a futuristic clipboard.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
Maybe we'll get a hint in the text. So the text on this page is literally a summary of the last two books.
Mm-hmm.
And where we are.
Right, and the only thing that leaves any guessing as to who this character might be is it does say near the bottom at the last paragraph, it says, their ultimate fates and those of Zaphod, Trillian, Slarty Bartfast, and Marvin the Paranoid Android are the subject under investigation as we begin our quests for life, the universe, and everything.
Yes.
So he's some kind of investigator.
He is an investigator, yes. Oh, he's on the first page.
Oh, cool. Well, there he is.
It's Wowbagger.
Oh, okay.
He's got his clipboard. He's got all of his names in alphabetical order.
Mm-hmm. Wouldn't it be Wowbagger?
And he's headed to the uncharted backwaters.
At least he has a mission, as he says, right?
Yes. A mission to insult everyone in the universe in alphabetical order, of course.
Mm-hmm. Oh, my goodness. And it's just amazing. I mean, immediately the transition, we go to the next page and we see Arthur there as Wowbagger's ship descends on the primitive Earth.
Right.
And he's got dark hair, like black, blue hair. With
right,
dark
yeah.
mustache and beard. And here he doesn't look like Carl Reiner.
No.
Oh my gosh.
And so, of course, Wowbagger lands, insults him.
Mm-hmm. He says, you're a jerk, a complete knee biter.
Yeah. So I'm a little confused here, so maybe you can help clear it up. So the top panel is Arthur shielding his eyes from a landing ship.
Mm-hmm.
The next panel is the stairs are down. It says Dent, Arthur Philip Dent. He says yes. And you're a jerk, a complete knee biter.
Mm-hmm.
Then it says, some 2 years later, on the same prehistoric planet, you're a jerk, a complete knee biter. So is he just having a dream?
I guess that's what it is. He's waking from a dream in his cold and damp cave on the lower parts of the panels.
Okay, so that's really kind of I don't know, disassociative. To me, it doesn't.
It is, but you picked up on it very quickly. I did not immediately know what that was all about either. I thought it was odd. But clearly he's waking up from a dream and screaming, as he does every morning.
Yes, they did mention that. Well, now we know what he dreamed of. They never said what his dream was. So
and
now
why
we know.
He screams.
Yes.
Because he, in fact, is a knee biter.
Yes. Of all the things that he could be screaming about, that is the one.
Mm-hmm.
And now he thinks it's a beautiful day. Mm-hmm. And he's wandering around, wondering what he should do, and decides that he might go mad.
And then Ford shows up and says, "That's a good idea."
And he went mad for a little while.
Ford?
Yeah, he can't believe it's Ford. There's a couple of panels here that I think they could have spent a little more time with him talking to the trees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Good morning, Ash. Good morning, Elm.
That's what it could have said instead of "what a beautiful day." And then, of course, Arthur finally realizes what's going on and gets very mad and starts yelling at Ford. "Where have you been?"
Mm-hmm. He says, "Around and about." And then he said, "Oh, here's one of our favorite lines, right?" Ford says, "And then I decided I was a lemon for a couple of weeks and amused myself jumping in and out of gin and tonic."
Yes.
Well, it was a small lake that thought it was a gin and tonic. At least I think it thought it was a gin and tonic.
Right.
I love the circular logic. That always gets me.
Right. So Arthur's trying to find out where he has been, and Ford tells him he went to Africa.
Mm-hmm. Ford says, "Africa was interesting. I behaved quite oddly there. I took up being cruel to animals, but only as a hobby."
Oh, and here's where he says that he's responsible for the evolved shape of the animal you know in later centuries as a giraffe.
And he learned to fly.
Tried. He only tried to learn to fly.
Oh, that's right. Right. You're right. He only tried to learn to fly.
And the only reason he mentions that at this point is so they could introduce The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Remember that book?
Uh-huh.
And gives it to Arthur.
Right.
And Arthur says, "I remember throwing it in a river."
And, of course, Ford has fished it out of the river, and he doesn't want to give it back to him if he's going to throw it back in the river.
Right. And so then he reads the entry on flying. This would have to be, I would say, the favorite line of this book from its readers. Like, if you're going to say, what's your favorite line of Life, the Universe, and Everything, I am sure that it's at least in the top 3. And that is that the way you fly is to throw yourself at the ground and miss. And Ford admits he's not done very well so far.
And showing him his scraped up arm and elbow.
Right. Oh, and then here, of course, they talk about what happened to the Gulgafrinchums, and it's how a lot of them didn't make it through the winter, and the few who remained said they needed a holiday and set off on a raft. Mm-hmm. So again, that is my reason for believing that the Gulgafrinchums are gone, and Arthur is a product of the original inhabitants.
He is later defined as descended from apes, so
yes,
we have to assume that's true.
Oh, well, let's see here. How much are they going to beat this into the ground?
Oh, here's your Eddie Who line.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
So there's a disturbance, and there's eddies in the space-time continuum, and Arthur, of course, asks Eddie Who. Mm-hmm. And they kind of just drop it after that. Mm-hmm. So they don't go on and on and on about Eddie.
Well, of course, there's more than one Eddie in the world, so...
There is. And at least here, it says Eddie Who. as opposed to in the book where I believe it says, "Who's Eddie?"
Right. You're right.
Eddie Who makes more sense and isn't nearly as annoying as Who's Eddie. And then, of course, the sofa pops up in the field.
Is that what a Chesterfield looks like to you?
I have to imagine.
I don't know about that.
That is a perfectly accurate depiction
of a Chesterfield
sofa. All right, and of course, as they're chasing it, Ford is saying, "I told you, Eddie's in the space-time continuum." And that's when Arthur says, "Is this his sofa?" Which is still a good joke.
It is a good question. But I keep looking at that. Looks more like a sofa from IKEA than from the Chesterfield version.
I think so. It's And Ford just knows that they have to catch the sofa in order to get off of prehistoric Earth.
Mm-hmm. And Arthur says, "And it's been such a good day so far. Half an hour ago, I decided to go completely mad. And now, look at me."
And he didn't go on and explain everything. They just end it there, and you're just supposed to understand that he's chasing a sofa across prehistoric Earth.
A form of madness.
So there's a real quick guide entry.
Mm-hmm. Very quick, yep.
Which has the important facts from galactic history. Number 1, the night sky over the planet Cricket is the least interesting sight in the entire universe. And the way they have it positioned here, you almost think there's a cricket game happening on Cricket. Mm-hmm. Because it does say, "Meanwhile on 20th century planet Earth," but you don't really get to that until your brain has already made the connection that there's a sky and there's announcers.
Right.
And so they're at a cricket game at Lord's Cricket Ground, and England looking like they're going to regain the Ashes, and then whoop.
And then the one announcer says, "Well, this is an interesting incident, Brian."
Right. Because there hasn't been any mysterious materializations on the pitch since,
Edgbaston 1932, Peter. Oh my gosh, what happened in Edgbaston?
Well, Peter, Cantor was facing Wilcox coming up to bowl from the pavilion end, and a spectator ran straight across the pitch.
Oh my gosh. You can hardly call that a materialization, can you, Brian?
No, true, but the man did claim to have seen something materialize on pitch.
Ah, did he?
Yes, an alligator, I think, of some description.
Well, for those of you who just tuned in, that's pretty funny stuff. And of course, you see Ford and Arthur clinging to the sofa for dear life, and then it pops out of existence once again.
Right. And I think this, again, is something that he likes to do a lot, is to make a caricature out of English culture. As in, the most ludicrous things can happen in front of these announcers, but they will be unperturbed, and they will announce like it was a perfectly normal occurrence. And when the sofa vanishes, it's like, oh, it's gone. Back to the game.
Yep. Next page, we see Arthur and Ford sitting at a small table. Arthur's enjoying a cup of tea rather contentedly, and he asks Ford, "Where are we?"
And Ford tells him that he's at Lord's Cricket Ground.
With Arthur says, "So, I'm home."
Boy, is he happy to be home. Until, of course, Ford shows him a newspaper.
Right.
And Arthur wants to know if there's anything that he should do now that he knows that it's only 2 days before the Vogons demolish the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And Ford talks him out of it.
That's right. Talks him out of calling himself up and telling him what's going to happen.
Because nothing good has ever come of that.
Mm-hmm. And then here's one of my favorite lines, I'll admit to here, where Arthur says, "So we're not home and dry after all."
Right. And your favorite line is?
Ford says, we could not even be said to be home and vigorously toweling ourselves off.
Right.
Oh, I love it.
And then here's where Arthur realizes that his bag is very similar, but it's not his bag, and the towel in the bag is not his towel, and his was a jogging towel that was blue with yellow stars on it.
That he bought at Marks and Spencer, right?
Oh no, it was a Golga Frencham jogging.
Oh, that's right. Right. He had the that's right. Golga Frencham towel. That is what he had here. But prior to that, he lost his original towel.
Right. And the stones are different. So everything, all the contents in the bag are different. And the bag is different, but it's all very similar.
Mm-hmm. And then Ford goes about looking strangely in different angles and different directions, making faces and squinting his eyes and
holding his eyes open.
Yeah, holding his eyes open. And Arthur says, "What on earth are you doing?" And then in the next page, we hear the whoop of a cricket ball. Arthur sees it flying through the air at him, and plunk, it falls into his satchel.
Yes. And then he tells the kids who are looking for it that it's not over here. I think it rolled over there.
Misdirects the children, and the child turns to him and says, "What's your name?" And he says, "Dent, Arthur Dent." And the child says,
"You're a jerk, Dent. A complete knee biter." So he's living his nightmare.
Exactly. The echoing. But you know what's funny? At least in the book, I remember Arthur commenting about his robe having changed as well. But here they seem to have the same stripy robe on.
Yes. So Ford is going through all those different gyrations because he's trying to see what he calls an SEP, a somebody else's problem.
And I love that description.
Yes, it is perfect.
Mm-hmm. And you know what makes it funny to me is if you can eventually create artificial intelligence as a viable thing within a computer or robot or however you actually present the final form of it, the concept of an SEP or something like that becomes viable.
Yes. Yes, it does.
Which I love. Do we even say what someone else's problem is all about?
You can. It's the bottom panel.
Oh, here on the bottom panel, Ford explains to Arthur what an SEP is. He says, an SEP is something that we can't see, or our brain won't let us see it because we think it's someone else's problem. The brain just edits it out like a blind spot.
And while he's saying this, he's like peeking out from behind Arthur on both sides. Like, he's closing one eye.
And I love the shot. I just realized that I was looking at this in the upper panel and in the subsequent panels. You can see the bone in
Arthur's beard. Yes.
Beard.
Well, I was going to mention that the kid didn't point out that he has a bone.
Oh, he didn't. Nope.
But it's definitely
there.
Mm-hmm. And so then on the next panel, Ford is continuing to say that if you look at an SCP directly, you're not going to see it, unless, of course, you already know what it is. And Arthur's like, I can see it. Spaceship.
And then a mysterious figure in black from the shadows of the spaceship says, "Exciting, isn't it?"
Yes. And once again, Slarty Bartfast has arrived. And has said that England has just won, and that means that they're going to retain the ashes, and that Arthur should be very pleased. And Arthur's just stammering. Slarty Bartfast admits to liking cricket. And then, of course, Ford is doing his cool guy. Hey, Slarty Bartfast, is that your ship? Can you give us a lift? It's just that the Earth is going to be demolished in a couple of days.
And Slarty says, "Patience. Great things are afoot."
That's what you said last time.
And they were.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's still funny to me because this story takes us so far out of the timeline and puts us back in.
Right.
It's always been the story that exists without the rest of the story.
The story that exists without the rest of the story.
Well, it exists within the universe, but it doesn't have anything to do with the rest of the story,
Right. Oh, definitely. Yes. Slarty Bartfast is heading over into the crowd, and Ford's trying to figure out what's going on, and Arthur is explaining about the ceremony of the ashes.
Mm-hmm.
And a burnt cricket stump. Arthur says that Slarty Bartfast says something about the ashes being vitally important to the past, present, and the future safety of the galaxy.
Does he say that in the previous panel?
It's in the center panel here.
No. I mean, when did Slarty say that to Arthur? Not in the previous page or panel.
Arthur is telling Ford what Slarty Bartfast said. So
right.
he's standing there, and he says it looks like he wants them to give him the ashes, meaning Slarty Bartfast.
Right.
And then Slarty Bartfast, then he says what I read.
Right.
So
okay.
It doesn't say, or you don't actually see Slarty Bartfast, but for the understanding of our listeners, I was putting multiple things all together.
No. I understand that from your perspective. What I was wondering was, how did Arthur know what Slarty said about the vitally important part, unless he's repeating what he is currently overhearing?
That could be.
Okay. Anyway, too esoteric. Let's move on to the WAP.
Yeah. All right. So we'll edit all that stuff out,
Yep.
and so
Yep. Yeah,
start clean with the WAP.
Mm-hmm. And then WAP.
Yes. How many people were supposed to say it?
Oh, I don't know, 1,000, millions?
Like 1,000 or 1,000,000 people saying WAP?
Something like that, yep. And then it's funny, the panel on the bottom shows the white ship of the cricketers, I guess.
Yeah.
With, I'm not sure whether they're firing retro rockets or what exactly. It almost looks like macaroni is attached to the side of the ship.
Yes, it is very odd. But if you go back 2 more pages and you look at Slarty Bartfast ship, he also has those same kind of designs around
he
it.
Does. Oh,
that I
see.
thought...
Yeah, there were half moons and stuff more looking
right.
on his shape. Yeah.
But I thought that was signifying somebody else's problem field.
Right.
And now they're on this ship, which I don't think is using that same field.
No, that's weird. Well, I see. Yeah, you're right. It does appear to be something similar. Well, it's from whatever space they popped in from.
Yes.
It's an artifact.
And then all hell broke loose. And this page is just full of cricket robots and fire and explosions.
Exactly.
And Arthur says, if you want to remember what they said about stating the obvious, hang on. Something seems to be happening.
Oh. And then Ford says, this is not my planet. I don't want to get involved. Get me out of here and to a party with people I can relate to. And here we see a new version of a cricket robot. They have the utility belt on, but in this particular version, it's kind of yellow, so it separates from their white background.
Right.
And you can see it kind of in a cross pattern across their chest.
Right.
Where their cricket bombs are attached. And here you can see their more pronounced paddings on their knees and legs.
Right. Definitely.
Mm-hmm. And there's lots of, as you say, explosions and such going on.
And on the next page, you see that the announcers are still unperturbed, just casually smoking his pipe.
Oh, and he says, well, the Supernatural Brigade certainly seems to be out in force today, Brian.
Yeah. And then they just watch the carnage.
Mm-hmm.
And then Slarty Bartfast comes running up, kind of all out of sorts, because they've got them, they've taken the ashes.
And Ford says, what did he say? And then there's a whoop.
As I guess the cricket ship left.
Mm-hmm. And Arthur explains to Ford, he says they've taken the ashes, the burnt remains of the cricket stump I was telling you about.
That's a strange thing to say.
Strange thing to take.
Yeah. Strange ship. As Ford finally looks at Slarty Bartfast's ship.
And then Slarty says, yes, I know, but there is a reason.
He tells him, now hurry, we must go. The ancient nightmare is come again. Doom confronts us all.
And then Ford says, I fancy somewhere sunny.
Then I'm trying to decide what is going on in those top two panels.
Well, I think...
Oh, I see what's going on.
On the top two, yeah. One ship is arriving and the other ship is leaving.
Yes, a ship is coming down as the cricket ship is leaving.
Mm-hmm.
Door opens. Somebody gets out. Guy laying on the ground, all hurt and from all the carnage going on. And he's asked if he is Arthur Philip Deodat.
Then Wowbanger says, you're a no good Dumbo nothing. And then in the next part he says, I thought you should know that before you went.
Right. And then the guy dies. Last thing that ever happened to him is he was insulted by Wowbanger.
Oh, sounds like a life we'd love to live, right?
Definitely. So now we have another guide entry.
Mm-hmm.
And this is important fact from the Galactic History number 2. Since the galaxy began, vast civilizations have risen and fallen so often that it's tempting to think that life in the galaxy must be A, something akin to seasick, spacesick, timesick, historysick, or some such thing, or B, stupid. So that...
Yes. And the bottom panel of this particular entry scene shows the Vogon ships destroying the planet Earth with an explosion.
Right. And then the expressions on their face when Ford is saying, nice mover.
Makes the heart of gold seem like an electric pram. Something about the decor, though, and Arthur seems to be quite panicked with the panicked face.
Yeah.
And the outside of the ship is a little odd. It's kind of like a, I don't know, like a star, you know.
Right.
Pointy, sharp, starry thing. And the inside is definitely like a bistro.
Definitely. So I'm not quite sure what this line is referring to, but Ford is complaining about the decor, and Slarty Bartfast's response is, deep in the fundamental heart of mind and universe, there is a reason. So, don't bother me about the decor. There's a reason for it. And we'll find that out soon.
Mm-hmm. And then Ford asks Slarty, how far have we just traveled and where are we going? And then Slarty says, roughly 2/3 of the way across the galactic disk, and we're going to confront an ancient nightmare of the universe.
And where are you dropping us off?
Somewhere where we can get a drunk and listen to some extremely evil music, I hope.
Oh, and then here Slarty Bartfast is imposing his will, I guess.
Yes, yes. There you go. Now you see the other side that you've always seen.
Yes. What I figured out about him a long time ago, it comes out here in this center panel.
This one panel shows it all, exactly.
So he is nose to nose with Ford, explaining that he is going to need his help.
Mm-hmm. Ford goes into describing a little bit about Eccentrica Golumbits, the triple-breasted whore of Eroticon 6, and Slarty just ignores him and says, a curse has arisen from the mists of time, a curse which will engulf the galaxy in fire and destruction, and possibly bring the universe to a premature end.
And Ford's still going on about Eccentrica. About how far her erogenous zones start from her body. Theory says 4, but he thinks 5.
And of course, nobody's listening as his voice is trailing off.
Yes. He does not want anything to do with anything but going to a beach.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I do like the panel, though, at the top, the next page.
Yes.
Arthur and Ford continue their conversation, and Arthur says to Ford, "What's Slarty Bartfast looking so worried about?" And in the next panel...
Yeah. Slarty Bartfast says, "Doom."
Then, of course, Slarty offers to take Ford and Arthur off to explain things to him by traveling through their ship.
Ford is still trying to get off the ship, and he's saying that his doctor says he has a malformed public duty gland and a natural deficiency in moral fiber, and he's therefore excused from saving universes, and that his ship looks like a joke. Mm-hmm. And he's saying that it's complex four-dimensional topographical map of a series of complex mathematical functions.
They start talking about bistromathics.
And bistromathics is the most powerful computational force known to parascience. And brings them into the room of informational illusions. AKA the holodeck.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Oh.
Isn't it convenient that all of these sci-fi places have a holodeck?
Yes, it is.
Oh my gosh. Don't you love it? The next panel is one of those panels that we are so used to from being represented as a conversation with the book.
Yes.
And on the pages you see the whale, you see Einstein, representation of the Earth. The bottom right-hand corner, it almost looks like a Star Wars character that we're familiar with.
Right.
They're trying to throw everything they got into this one page.
The page is describing how bistromathics came about and how it works with non-absolute numbers and all of the different examples of non-absolute numbers. So the first non-absolute number is the number of people for whom the table is reserved, which will vary during the first 3 telephone calls and then bear no apparent relation to the number of people who actually turn up. The second non-absolute number is the given time of arrival, a bizarre mathematical concept called, oh, here we go, a reciproverse occlusion.
Ah, you did it. Yay! On one try. I'm so proud
On one
of you.
try. Yeah, no editing there. In other words, the given time of arrival is the one moment in time at which it is impossible that any member of the party will arrive. I think that is my favorite joke of the entire book. I do like the flying bit, but this little observation is hysterical to me.
It is. It's great.
And that's when the Star Wars guy is running in saying he
Yeah,
hopes
exactly.
it's not too late.
Star Wars character runs it. And another page full of this.
Yes, and then they come with the third and most mysterious piece of non-absoluteness, lies in the relationship between the number of items on the bill, the cost of each item, the number of people at the table, and what they are each prepared to pay for.
And again here, it's kind of funny because, I mean, we're talking about sacrilegious representation here, but it looks like the Last Supper with Slarty sitting in the middle.
Oh, it certainly does.
in his robes, and he's the table set out for all of the odd creatures and people that are there at dinner. And then the bottom right-hand panel, which I'm sure you'll describe some of the words that are going around it, but this has to be a direct relationship to the Monty Python skit with the one wafer thin mint.
Yes, absolutely.
Where the gentleman in the restaurant explodes.
Yes, and this guy is exploding.
Oh, no.
Oh, Marvin!
Oh, yes.
I think
One
he's
of
with
our
Zem.
favorite little, yeah. It's Zem. It's Zem.
It's Zem.
Oh, we love Squanchulous Zeta.
Yes.
And the robot with the peg leg, or as you say, the artificial leg.
Yeah.
Oh. But as you point out, how could a robot's leg be anything but artificial?
Exactly. Do they use artificial here? And I got to
No,
scan.
I don't know what they say here. Does he even mention his leg, except the fact that he's spinning around in a circle?
It might come up later. We have to watch for that because I want to see if they change a robot having an artificial leg, which is a really great joke, but I don't know if it is an intentional joke.
Mm-hmm.
But the Zem is flopping in a floopy manner and asks Marvin why he's walking around in circles.
Oh, gosh.
And Zem tells him that's a pretty poor sort of leg.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, my gosh.
And, of course, here's where Marvin doesn't say how, but he just says that he was a celebrity once on the account of his miraculous escape from a fate almost as good as death in the heart of a blazing sun.
Mm-hmm.
And then he was rescued by a scrap metal merchant.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that. Here he is, brain the size of a planet. And then whop.
Gosh. He gets drug off by...
He's flat on his back in the rain, in a puddle. And he says, you see the sort of thing I have to contend with.
Oh, my gosh.
And then, foop, he's gone.
And poor Zem is sitting there all dejected because his best friend just left.
Yes.
Oh, this is a great depiction. I do like the depiction of this scene.
Yes, the floppy mattresses were perfect.
And then we're back in the room of informational illusions, the holodeck. And Arthur is somehow upside down and spinning in a circle.
And they're being told about the cricket wars.
Mm-hmm. Now, do they do the joke here?
Which joke?
Well, the one where Slarty is telling him not to agree to anything.
Oh, he hasn't got there
That's
yet.
about to come up, right? You know.
It has to be.
Yeah, there you go.
He's saying this is a boring part of the documentary, so he's trying to scroll through and find the good bits.
Yep, the good bits.
Oh, and yes, in the bottom panel it says, "Do not agree to buy anything at this point."
Then somehow Benjamin Franklin is involved.
Okay, yeah. Yes, he is.
Oh, so funny that they go to the trouble of making him look like Benjamin Franklin.
Yes, and
This is the judge that locked away the cricketers with the key.
that looks like the wicket gate.
Mm-hmm.
And here's where they describe it: the steel pillar, the wooden pillar, and the perspex pillar, and the gold bale and the silver bale.
Until the end of eternity, they are locked away. Then the next panel is when the sales pitch begins.
Yes.
You too can own your own cricket bale.
And then, so of course, Slarty Bartfast is saying, "Don't nod. Don't nod."
Now we bow our heads in payment. Oh, gosh. Sardi says, "Oh, you get the gist." And, of course, Arthur just says, "Oh, I was asleep. Did I miss anything?"
Yeah.
And then on the bottom panel of this page, Slarty says that he's going to explain things to them himself. And here we kind of have some cross between the Room of Illusion and telling of the book.
Oh, and now they jump elsewhere. And this must be the Heart of Gold.
Yep, the Heart of Gold. And you see stomp, 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 whir, stomp, 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 whir.
Yeah. Thank you for making a simple door very happy. I hope your diodes rot.
Zarkov.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And this, of course, is Zaphod with his two heads looking kind of like Tarzan.
Yes.
Arms wrapped up in spotted leopard
Yeah, cuffs.
skin. And he's banging on the ship asking, why?
And then there's a depiction of Trillian that's a little different looking than the last Trillian. And she's just trying to explain to him that you've been on a mission and you're bound to feel aimless now that it's finished.
And he says, I think it finished me. As he's downing a bottle of Old Jenks spirit in one mouth.
Yeah.
And leaning on his hand with the other.
And so Zaphod is lamenting that here I am, Zaphod Beeblebrox. I've got the greatest ship in the sky, a girl with whom things to be working out pretty well.
And she says, are they?
He's like, huh? And then the drunk side of him is like, I'm not an expert in relationships.
But I'm one hell of a guy and I can do anything I want. And here, I love this panel because there's a shot of Trillian striding off. And it's like one of the Archie characters, like Betty or Veronica, just storming off the scene.
Right. And Zaphod falls off his chair.
Confused as usual. And that's when she jumps in the teleporter, I guess, and zips off to anywhere.
Yes. And he's like, what about the excitement and the adventure and really wild things?
It's always the promise, never the delivery.
Right.
And then the next panel, the other head says the same thing.
And then another whop.
And then Zaphod says, is there someone on the ship? And both of the speakers in this particular scene are covered up and taped over.
Yes.
Obviously because he got mad at them earlier.
Because they kept talking.
Right, the computer just goes... I think I did that fairly well.
Yeah. So he's going to ungag the computer. And he tells himself to remind him to punch himself in the mouth. And then here he's trying to be very quiet.
Right, right.
If you can hear me, say so very quietly. I can hear you. Good. Now, in a moment, I'm going to ask you to open. I do not want you to say that you enjoyed it, okay? Okay.
Doors. And Zaphod starts to go towards it. Then he says...
And I don't want you to say to me that I have made a simple door very happy, or that it was a pleasure for you to open for me, and your satisfaction to close again with the knowledge of a job well done. And I don't want you to say, have a nice day. Understand?
I understand, says the door.
Okay, open now. And then the door opens, and Zaphod walks through, and he's getting closer to the cricket robots.
And the door screams, is that the way you like it, Mr. Beetlebrox?
He's like, oh!
Oh, which gets the attention of the robots, of course. And then Zaphod has that great line. Okay, I want you to imagine that I have an extremely powerful kilozap blaster in my hand.
You do have a kilozap blaster in your hand, says one of the robots.
Well, I wouldn't want to tax your imagination, robot.
It's like, I couldn't help noticing you've parked your ship through mine.
Yes.
So they explain that they're there for the gold bale. And it's part of the key that they are seeking to release their masters from cricket.
All right. And of course, Zaphod says, what are you talking about?
And they go through the whole explanation of the key and everything that we've already learned. So we get to listen to Zaphod learning what Ford and Arthur learned previously.
Yes, yes.
And then they shoot him.
And they go foop and disappear once again.
Yes.
Then we're back to this discussion with Slarty Bartfast, Arthur, and Ford.
Okay.
And they are standing on the hills of Cricket, watching the masters of cricket as they are contently walking down the lane in the dark.
Right. And they talk about how cricket is a freak of racial memory, which keeps images alive in the mind. Aeons after their true significance has been lost to the mists of time.
Mm-hmm.
And only the English.
They could turn it into a game.
Yeah.
Oh.
And he again admits that he's kind of fond of the game.
Yeah, even here, Arthur appears to be imagining the game with him standing as a bowler.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Slarty Bartfast was talking about how in most people's eyes you have been guilty of the most grotesquely bad taste, particularly the bit about the little red ball hitting the wicket. That's very nasty.
Oh my gosh. And then we're back towards the scene where they're standing on the hill outside of Cricket, looking down on the masters of cricket as they cheerfully walk along the glade in the dark.
They're not singing.
No, they aren't singing here.
And here's where we learn that cricket people did not ever believe they were alone in the universe because they never knew there was a universe to be alone in until this particular night when the burning wreckage of a spaceship came screaming out of the sky.
Then you could see them in a panic, praying to whatever gods they know. And then we are back in the book.
Yes, the guide.
The guide.
And they're talking about the most famous ship ever. So it says, some speak of the Heart of Gold in hushed tones. Others of the starship Bistromath. Still others praise the greats of the galactic fleet such as the GSS Daring, the GSS Audacity, and the most famous, the GSS Suicidal Insanity. But none are spoken of with such actual astonishment as the Cricket 1, the first spaceship ever built by the people of Cricket.
Oh my gosh. And this was because of the time it took to build, thanks to the crashed alien ship from which they stripped every last secret. It took them almost 1 year exactly from the moment they discovered there was such a thing as space. And then, of course, we're on to the next page, and Arthur says, Ford, don't tell me this thing is going to fly.
It's like, okay, I won't.
And then we see it taking off. And I'm not sure why Ford and Arthur and Slarty are in some kind of launch couch.
Right.
At this moment. I guess they somehow secreted themselves upon the ship.
Well, they're in the room of informational illusions or whatever, so...
They were. Mm-hmm.
They're on the ship for its initial blast-off.
Right. And on the panel on the bottom left, they're upside down. The bottom right, they're right side up. And Arthur's barfing his way through the excitement.
Yes, he is. And this is kind of a lot of nothing on a page here.
It sure is. Weird page. It shows the cricketers taking off, going out into space, and saying,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So it's basically these two pilots or whatever from Cricket on the ship who eventually learn that there is a universe.
Right.
And their astonishment, and their spaceship has a handbrake.
To our astonishment.
Yes. And I guess they immediately turn around and go back the other way.
Mm-hmm. After seeing the universe, the only thing they can say is...
It'll have to go.
To be continued.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Dun 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 dun.
And then we get asked, will the cricketers destroy the universe? And who's to say they haven't already? Can Arthur, Ford, and Slarty Bartfast stop the deadly cricket robots from completing the Wicket Gate? Where's Zaphod? Where's Trillian? And doesn't anyone care about poor Marvin? Actually, wait. Don't answer that last one.
But do join us next month for some, if not all, the answer to these questions, as well as the party of the year, and the year before that, and the year before that. In Life, the Universe, and Everything, number 2.
And then here's a page about all the creators and their bios.
Oh my goodness, Blue Beetle and Wonder Woman.
So it looks like Digital Chameleon is a company that is headed by Laverne Kinzierski. So he started his own...
Okay.
So Laverne was in the other books, but he's now formed a company. Okay, that makes sense.
With 30 people, oh my gosh, that many people are still working in coloration?
Wow.
It's such a different world today. Although, you know, you and I have been to so many conventions and met so many of these guys that do this kind of artwork.
Yes.
It's still amazing to me that even though some of them are rather famous and have full-time jobs doing their artwork and coloring and all that kind of stuff, they still come to a convention and will sell you their autograph for $5.
Right. Right.
Oh, what a life.
Yes. And then this is just all of the heads of DC Comics. And then the back cover. This is what's supposed to get you to buy this issue.
Mm-hmm.
So it's showing that Arthur is asking himself, what shall I do today?
Oh, yes, I know. I think I'll go mad.
Yeah. From a quiet morning on a prehistoric Earth to a worn-torn cricket field in the fastest spaceship in existence. What's a temporally displaced Earthman to do? Join Arthur Dent, Ford, Zaphod, Trillian, Slarty Bartfast, and yes, Marvin the paranoid android on their obviously hilarious quest for the answer to life, the universe, and everything.
Be there or go mad.
So even after our little break for this month,
yes,
we will do 2 bonus episodes where we do issues 2 and 3 of Life, the Universe, and Everything. And we will still put them on YouTube so you can look at all the pages that we're talking about as we're talking about them.
I love it. They look so good on that presentation for YouTube. I think those who have seen it will really enjoy it, and those who have not yet seen it should.
Right. Yes. I 100% agree. All right, Brian. Well, until the next time for our first bonus episode, I think it's time to say goodbye. So say goodbye, Brian.
You know what, Jeff? I think I'll go make myself a sandwich.
Very good. Very good. Enjoy.
Share and enjoy.
Thank you for listening to Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea. Look for us the first Thursday of every month for a full episode. We will also release a bonus episode later in the month. A very special thanks goes out to Luke, Max, Greg, and Tim Lesnick for arranging and performing our opening theme. We would also like to thank our talented friends and family for their voice work on our introductions and commercials. For this episode, a special thank you goes out to Lorraine Campbell for our opening. Visit our website at digitalwatchesareaprettyneatidea.buzzsprout.com, where you can find links to all my Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy inspired t-shirt designs. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube as Digital Watches Are a Pretty Neat Idea, on Instagram at Watches Idea Podcast, and on Twitter, or should I say X, at Watches Idea.
If you'd like to contact us, our email is digitalwatchespodcast@gmail.com.
This has been a Froods for Thought production.